Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're looking at a deeply tragic, deeply sobering, and honestly, a very urgent case. We're going to unpack the timeline surrounding the heartbreaking death of a 4-month-old infant, really piecing together exactly what happens when a caregiver's hidden demons collide with an innocent life. You know, it's a heavy subject for sure, but understanding the actual facts of this case, and especially the warning signs that were somehow missed, is absolutely crucial. Imagine walking through your front door after a long, exhausting shift at work. You're fully expecting to just check on your peacefully sleeping baby, right? But instead, you are instantly plunged into absolute chaos. Listen to the sheer panic in this 911 call made by Amber McCall.
What the hell is you doing to my baby, bro? I need the police. She's barely breathing.
Her 4-month-old daughter wasn't just awake, she was barely breathing, and she was covered in bruises. The desperation in Amber's voice really sets the horrific stakes for what happened on the night of July 21st. Part 1. A mother's worst nightmare, and the 911 call in Reed City. So this entire tragedy unfolded in Reed City, Michigan, which is a little over an hour north of Grand Rapids. Picture this, it's 2 a.m. on July 21st, 2024. Amber McCall is finally getting home from work. Now, she had left her 4-month-old daughter, Renzi, in the care of her partner of a few months, a woman named Savannah Miller. Amber had actually been trying to call Savannah before even leaving work, but she was getting absolutely no answer. And when Amber finally unlocks the door and gets inside that apartment, her worst fears are realized. Her baby is completely unresponsive. The first responders arrive on the scene, and what they find is just a horrifying medical reality. The EMTs immediately note that little Renzi's unresponsive, incredibly lethargic, and burning up. She's extremely warm to the touch. Her respirations and her heartbeat are dangerously fast. But the thing that really sent off alarm bells for the medical team, a blown pupil. If you know anything about medicine, you know a blown pupil is a massive, immediate red flag for severe head trauma. Plus, they found extensive contusions all over the baby's head, her face, her left leg, and harsh abrasions right down her back. Part 2. The unresponsive caregiver. And quite frankly, a chilling contrast. Okay, so while the EMTs are frantically rushing to save little Renzi's life, the police naturally turn their attention to the person who was supposed to be watching her. And this is where things get bizarre. When Amber got home, Savannah wasn't, pacing the floors in a panic or holding the baby. Not at all. According to Amber, Savannah was knocked out cold. In fact, Amber and a friend literally had to bang on the outside bedroom window just to wake her up. And when Savannah finally stirs, she just has this blank stare. Amber is screaming, demanding to know what happened to her daughter, and Savannah's reaction is to casually claim Renzi was fine, lay back down, and literally pull a pillow over her head. Can you even imagine? Eventually, the police get Savannah to sit up and actually talk to them, but her demeanor is completely, chillingly apathetic. There is zero urgency from her that a 4-month-old infant is fighting for her life. The officers ask her, "Hey, have you taken any drugs or alcohol tonight?" Savannah looks them in the eye and firmly says no. She claims she just took her prescribed psychiatric medication, hit her THC vape a bit, and went to sleep. According to her story, she smoked, she laid down, and absolutely nothing happened. Let's actually map out this critical window of time, piecing together Savannah's statements and the digital footprints left behind. We know Amber leaves for work right around 4:30 p.m. Savannah tells the cops that at 5 p.m. she took Renzi for a stroll outside. At 5:51 p.m., there's a record of a DoorDash food delivery arriving at the apartment. After that, Savannah claims it was just a quiet night, watched some TV, went to sleep. But somehow, in that dark 8-hour window between 6 p.m. and 2 a.m., baby Renzi suffered catastrophic, life-threatening injuries behind those closed doors. Which brings us to Part 3, uncovering the truth as the investigation unfolds. The police aren't buying it. Savannah's incredibly lethargic, nothing-to-see-here story is completely falling apart when compared to the battered infant fighting for her life in the ICU. The officers notice she's acting super sluggish, so they pull out a breathalyzer right there in the apartment. And what does Savannah blow? A 0.156 blood alcohol content. To put that into perspective, that is nearly double the legal driving limit. And remember, she didn't just drink, she combined this massive amount of alcohol with heavy prescribed psychiatric medications. Caught red-handed with the breathalyzer, Savannah tries to play it off. Okay, I had a couple shots of Fireball, but then the officers start searching the kitchen. At the very, very bottom of the kitchen trash can, they find a plastic bag tied in a tight knot. And inside that bag exactly 8 empty mini bottles of Fireball whiskey. When confronted with the actual evidence, Savannah finally admits she drank every single one of them that night. So, police haul Savannah down to the station for a formal interrogation. They're pushing her, trying to figure out how a helpless baby ends up with severe head trauma. They even try to give her an out, asking, did the baby fall? Was it an accident? But Savannah admits something that is just bone-chilling. She was completely blacked out. Her exact words, she was obviously phased. She claims she has absolutely zero memory of what happened to Renzi, leaving this horrifying, violent blank space in the timeline. Part 4. A tragic conclusion and the devastating loss of baby Renzi. While Savannah is sitting in a holding cell, essentially shrugging her shoulders and blaming a blackout, a dedicated medical team is doing everything humanly possible to save little Renzi. But the trauma was just too severe. Renzi actually had to undergo emergency brain surgery right away, just to try and relieve the massive swelling inside her skull. But even after the surgery, she kept suffering from seizures in the ICU. The damage was just completely irreversible. On July 24th, a mere 3 days after Amber found her, the doctors had to break the news that there was nothing more they could do. Amber was forced to make the unimaginable decision to remove her daughter's ventilator, and Renzi passed away that very same day. Now, as investigators really start digging into Savannah Miller's past, they uncover something that takes this from a tragic accident to an infuriating systemic failure. Brace yourself for this. According to court filings, Savannah had a deep, documented history with Child Protective Services regarding her own children. In just a 4-year window, there were more than 100 CPS reports of abuse and neglect filed against her. Over 100! And yet, despite that mountain of red flags, her kids weren't removed, and she was somehow still free to be the sole caregiver for a 4-month-old baby. About a month after the tragedy, Savannah, who is now locked up and facing serious homicide charges, calls Amber from jail. The call is recorded, of course. Savannah is crying, apologizing over and over, swearing she loved Renzi. But Amber, just totally broken by this, asks the one question that hangs over this entire case. She tells Savannah she just cannot wrap her arms around why she would do this to her baby. And Savannah's answer? She didn't have one. She just kept repeating that she didn't know why. Part 5, the final verdict and justice for Renzi. Look, with a deceased infant, a failed breathalyzer, and a hidden stash of liquor bottles, the evidence here was absolutely a slam dunk. This case was never ever going to see a jury. In early 2025, Savannah pleaded no contest to the charges against her. When sentencing rolled around in June of 2025, Amber bravely stood up in court to face Savannah, calling out the sheer evil and selfishness that stole her daughter. And the judge? Absolutely no leniency. Savannah was hit with up to 10 years for second-degree child abuse and a staggering 40 to 80 years for second-degree murder. Her defense team actually had the nerve to request a sentence reconsideration later, but the judge firmly shut it down. Because the judge threw the book at her, Savannah Miller is effectively going to spend the rest of her natural life in a prison cell. If you look at the Michigan Department of Corrections records, her earliest possible release date isn't until July of 2064. Even if she makes it to that date, she's going to be in her 70s. It is a harsh but incredibly necessary conclusion to a completely senseless crime, one fueled entirely by hidden addiction and gross negligence. But as we wrap up this explainer, we really need to sit with a deeply uncomfortable question. Yes, Savannah is behind bars, but how on earth did we get here? When a single person racks up over 100 Child Protective Services reports in just 4 years, how does the system fail to intervene? Justice was ultimately served for baby Renzi in that courtroom, but we have to ask ourselves, what fundamentally needs to change in our safety nets so that blaring warning signs like this are never, ever ignored again? Thank you so much for walking through the difficult facts of this case with me.